he turned into a different guy when he got to death row. I'm not going to say it was fake or phony because he got put on.
He actually got put on MOB, like they jumped him in and everything?
Somebody need to tell Pac, like, hey, homie, calm down with all that. Then he flipped and turned around and went and got jumped in the mouth.
Former artist RBX revealed how Tupac was said to have been jumped in to the MOB Piru Compton Bloods. Jumping in is a gang initiation ceremony from which an initiate gets jumped in, or what is slang word for group violence, where the initiate must endure the length of the ceremony to then become a member. Other gang initiations include shooting at police officers, beating down rival gang members, and various other crimes. Mob James, who was one of the original MOB Compton Bloods, had claimed that member Trayvon Lane had inducted Tupac into the MOB. Suge Knight had revealed how a red rag had been put on Tupac while speaking on it in the 2018 TV documentary called American Dream, American Nightmare.
Everybody keeps saying they knew Pac better. Well, Pac gonna be a rep. Pac wearing a red flag, you know what I'm saying? The right pocket, you know, so Pac was like, I'm on some MOB I'm on a red rag. So, bam, they put a red rag on Pac.
Trayvon Lane was the member of the mob who had pointed out Crip enemy Orlando Anderson, which led to the Bloods, including Tupac, to jump him in the lobby of the MGM Grand Hotel, being in Las Vegas. The incident had occurred just 3 hours before Tupac was fatally wounded in a drive-by shooting, being on the Vegas Strip. The CCTV video of the Bloods beating down the Crip was made available to the public after it was placed into evidence in a probation violation case against Suge Knight in 1996. In this video, we're going to take a look into Tupac's connection being to the MOB Piru Compton Bloods.
Suge Knight had reinvented himself as a mob Piru gang member, dressing in the blood colors, surrounding himself with a posse of ex-con Piru gang members.
When you say MOB, that's the mob. Pac didn't put MOB in just to be fashionable. Pac was really with that shit.
The Members of Blood, or abbreviated to MOB, was a gang in Compton, California, which had originated in the 1980s. The gang was founded by some of the members of the McDonald family, with one being Mob James. The MOB was a Piru set of Bloods, which is an allegiance within the larger contingency of the Blood Gang, made up of several different Piru sets. Ludus Park Piru was another Compton Piru set, which had initially contained the original founders of the MOB, which had formed after the members had left the Ludus Park Piru to create their own set. The MOB Piru's wiki page lists their criminal activities as engaging in drug trafficking, arms dealing, and robbery. Record executive Suge Knight was from the MOB neighborhood and made Mob James the head of his security in the early 1990s.
Suge Knight lived over in this area here, over on this side of town. He never claimed any particular gang or stuff, but the guys he grew up with are guys from this mob area over here.
Suge Knight pretty much put the MOB on the map with the Wikipedia entry including Suge Knight pictured with several Mob Piru members. In this footage here, Suge Knight can be seen wearing a burgundy P-Funk shirt, which was to the 96 Soul Train Awards, with the shirts being used to represent Piru, symbolizing the P, and Suge Knight had an estimate of 30 Pirus wearing matching shirts, who planned to pull Biggie Smalls off of the stage while he was accepting his award. Former Compton School District cop Kevin Hackey had been successful in infiltrating Suge Knight's company, working as an agent for the FBI and the ATF.
To investigate Marion Knight and Death Row Records for racketeering violations.
Hackey, according to these court filings, worked for 2 years as an undercover agent for the FBI and ATF, helping the feds.
Posing as a bodyguard, he had collected information concerning homicides and other criminal activity connected to Suge Knight and the MOB Pirus. The book Labyrinth, a detective investigates the murders of Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G., written by Randall Sullivan, includes excerpts from police interviews of Kevin Hackey where he had revealed details about the Mob Piru. Hackey in the book goes on to name the Bloods and the crimes they were believed to have been connected to. The book reveals Hackey had told LAPD detective Russell Paul about several homicides he believed Suge Knight and the MOB may have been connected to. In the book, Kevin Hackey named Suge Knight's thugs Neckbone and Buntree as the likely hitmen in the 1996 unsolved murder of Bruce Richardson. Bruce Richardson was managing artists in the industry who had confronted Suge Knight being over recording royalties while they were in a nightclub in 1996. Witnesses claimed Bruce had put his hands on Suge before being pulled off by the Bloods, and 2 weeks later, Bruce Richardson was shot to death in his home. Richardson had a reinforced door, with Kevin Hackey and LAPD detective Russell Poole arguing on how the Bloods would have gained access to the house, with the book revealing that at around the same time Bruce was killed, 3 Bloods had gained entrance to the home of a drug dealer who they had robbed and shot by posing as Muslims selling bean pies door to door. The book also claims that the door may have been open to people in LAPD uniforms. Kelly Jamison was a Crip, being the enemies of the Bloods, who had died from blunt force trauma after being involved in a beatdown at the El Rey Theatre at a Soul Train Awards after party in 1995. Witnesses claimed Treetop Pyru and Death Row associated artist DJ Quick as being the first to attack Kelly Jamison, being followed by Bloods, Jake Robles and Buntry, along with 3 others. The book reveals how Kevin Hackey was present at the murder scene and revealed a number of off-duty police officers, including members of the LAPD, had been working without permits, posing as bodyguards at the El Rey party. The book claims that the officers not only failed to rescue Kelly Jamison, but they had all left the theatre without identifying themselves to the uninformed cops on the scene and never reported later that they had been present when Jamison was killed. The case was soon dismissed for a lack of evidence. Kevin Hackey had went on to reveal in his conversation with LAPD detective Russell Poole on how after infiltrating the label in 1994, he claimed he had come to know for certain that allegedly MOB Bloods, Buntry, Neckbone and Heron had been running drugs, and Death Row Records were allegedly running a money laundering operation which was washing $80,000 per month. LAPD detective Russell Poole had found out that at least one Blood gang member of the corrupt LAPD Rampart division had been linked into Death Row Records. This corrupt cop was Kevin Gaines, who was uncovered as one of the corrupt cops of the Rampart scandal, who would also have been a Blood gang member. Kevin Gaines had met Suge Knight's ex-wife Sharifa in 1993, and the two began dating. Sharifa at the time was working as Snoop Dogg's manager, who was a Crip signed to Death Row Records, and obtained work for Kevin Gaines and the Rampart division to supply security for Snoop Dogg, which Snoop Dogg would pay in cash. The Labyrinth book claimed that an LAPD informant had also revealed Kevin Gaines as being an active Blood gang member, with the book reading, quote, "A number of LAPD officers acknowledged that Gaines had tried to recruit them to work security at Death Row parties. Frank Liger reported that an informant had told him Gaines was an active member of the Bloods gang. Suge Knight had long been associated with Compton's Pyru Bloods," unquote. C-Star was a rapper who was associated to Snoop Dogg during his time at Death Row, and he had recalled in a 2021 documentary Last Man Standing how he had witnessed Rampart cop David Mack being around the label. David Mack was a Rampart cop who would wear colours of the Blood Street Gang to private parties and later pledged his allegiance to the Bloods after going to prison in 1997. The 2001 TV series PBS Frontline, in the episode called LAPD Blues, claimed David Mack after being arrested in December of 1997 and while in prison for bank robbery, renounced his allegiance to the LAPD, and the show claims that he bragged about being a blood to fellow inmates. Wikipedia claims that David Mack had grown up in the same MOB Pyru neighborhood of Compton as Suge Knight. The Rampart scandal had revealed how the corrupt, gang-affiliated cops had been stealing drugs out of the evidence lockers to not only resell them on the street, but also to frame other people. In the 2001 LAPD Blues episode of the PBS Frontline series, Detective Russell Poole theorized that Kevin Gaines was working with the Bloods in drug trafficking activities. The Labyrinth book claims the US Justice Department had organized a multi-agency task force to investigate claims that Suge Knight and Death Row Records were trafficking in both guns and drugs. This was a RICO case against Death Row Records, which was launched in June of 1996, and it had used investigations by the ATF, the FBI, the IRS, and the LAPD, with allegations connected to violent acts, links to street gangs, drug trafficking, and money laundering. The Racketeer Influence Criminal Organizations Act is used by the US Justice Department to bring down criminal organizations. FBI undercover asset Kevin Hackey had revealed to Russell Poole of how he had witnessed Suge Knight discussing how to obtain and distribute assault rifles. The Labyrinth book reveals police informant reports of how Suge Knight allegedly delivered a load of AK-47 assault rifles to Blood gang members in the Nickerson Gardens housing projects in September of 1996. Tupac's former group artist Napoleon, belonging to the group The Outlaws, who were associated with New Jersey Crips, revealed on his podcast of how Kevin Hackey had been selling not only guns but also bulletproof vests to Death Row Records. He had expanded by revealing how he believes this was part of an ATF gun walking operation.
There was a guy named Hackey. He was an undercover ATF. He was selling us guns so we can keep track of them. Yeah. And also he had a connection to bulletproof vests.
These are ATF operations where the term of letting guns walk allows for traceable weapons to be introduced into criminal organizations for them to then be tracked and traced. Kevin Hackey had been caught with a trunk full of AK-47 assault rifles in 1998, which he had gone to jail for, with Kevin Hackey then claiming in the 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac of how he believes he was set up by the intelligence agencies for revealing that he had classified FBI documents which revealed the FBI have Tupac's murder on tape in private surveillance footage.
Hackey was incarcerated for having a trunk full of AK-47s. Hackey claims he was betrayed by the FBI. He wasn't given the promotion he was promised, and they then let him languish in jail. He had himself just been released from prison.
The AK-47s that Suge Knight had allegedly given the Bloods in the Nickerson Gardens housing projects were used in a Bloods vs. Crip war in Compton after the MOB and the Southside Compton Crips had gone to war.
Bad Boy Entertainment had actually hired Crips for security work out on the West Coast. Is that true?
We've never hired Crips or any other gang faction to do security for us.
The MOB went to war with the Southside Compton Crips in September of 1996 after several run-ins with each other and due to their connection with East Coast label Bad Boy and how it may have resulted in the death of Tupac Shakur. The Southside Compton Crips are an infamous set of the Crips from Compton, California. They have the largest territory in the city of Compton. The Crips are one of the largest and most violent associations of street gangs within the United States. The gang has close to 40,000 members in total, being broken down into separate sets, with the Compton Southside Crips being just a single set from Compton. Wikipedia lists Orlando Anderson as number 1 in the most notable members of the gang. Orlando Anderson, by the age of 22 in 1996, was already being investigated by the Compton Police Department for several murder cases and was identified by an eyewitness as being the triggerman in a homicide in Compton in April of 1996. Orlando Anderson was a nephew of Keefe D, who was a shot caller for the Southside Compton Crips. Keefe D was introduced to New York record executive Puff Daddy by New York drug trafficker Eric Zip Martin. Former president of Bad Boy Records Kirk Burroughs filed a lawsuit against Puffy in 2003, where he claimed Puffy was associated with a New York criminal group called the Enterprise, which allegedly carried out murder and extortion. Puffy's so-called affiliation, what was labelled as the Enterprise in the 2003 lawsuit, was then aligned with the Southside Compton Crips through Eric Zip Martin. Kirk Burroughs in the lawsuit claimed that Puff Daddy had allegedly sanctioned the 1995 hit of Suge Knight's friend and Blood gang member Jake Robles. Jake Robles was a Campanella Park Pyru, which is a Blood Pyru set in Compton. Southside Compton Crip Orlando Anderson, who was Keefe D's nephew, was with Puffy at the party where Jake Robles' murder took place. Keefe D claimed that Puffy would give the Southside Compton Crips upward of 50 tickets to his events in California to provide protection from Suge Knight and the Bloods. The Southside Compton Crips were now being used against the Mob Compton Pyrus from the feud between Puff Daddy and Suge Knight. Mob James, who was the former head of security for Suge Knight's Blood Gang Security, revealed that although the Bloods and Crips were natural enemies, the Southsiders and the Mob Pyrus didn't have an issue with each other until the feud between Puffy and Suge had started. Suge Knight at the March 1996 Soul Train Awards, while having upward of 30 Pyrus dressed in P-Funk shirts representing Pyru, were going to pull Biggie off the stage and rush him while he was accepting his award. Keefe D was working security at the venue, which was at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, and former Compton cop Reggie Wright Jr., whose father was the head of Compton's gang division, knew of Keefe D's status in Compton and had informed Keefe D about the plot which the Pyrus had against Biggie, with the security detail then blocking the entrance of the Pyrus so it didn't take place. Puffy and Biggie, including Junior Mafia member Lil C's, were performing at a show in the Anaheim Coliseum in California, being in 1996. The Crips had been given tickets to the show, with Lil C's confirming to have seen the Crips during a police interview.
Like they was backstage, on show, Anaheim Coliseum.
Keefe D, during a 3-hour interview with the LAPD, claimed that after the show in Anaheim, the Crips were allegedly invited by Puff Daddy back to his hotel room. Keefe D, during the LAPD interview, claimed that Puffy had spoken on for the first time of sanctioning a hit to the Southside Compton Crips to murder Suge Knight along with Tupac. Keefe D claimed that it first of all only started with Suge Knight. Orlando Anderson in July of 1996 attempted to steal the Death Row Records chain off of MOB Pyru Trayvon Lane's neck after running into him in the Lakewood Mall in California. On the streets of Compton, there was a rumor within the Bloods that Puffy had put a bounty on the chains, leading to the incident taking place. After Tupac had released the infamous diss track called Hit 'Em Up, which was aimed towards Biggie and Puffy and had included impersonators in the video, it was during this time in the summer of 1996 that Keefe D claimed he had met Puffy at the Greenblatt's Deli in Los Angeles, where it was now increased to both Tupac and Suge Knight, where $1 million bounty was proposed to the Southside Compton Crips. Tupac and Suge Knight were shot at 13 times in a drive-by shooting very shortly after. Puffy's bodyguard Eugene Dill claimed he saw the $1 million check, which was given to Jimmy Henchman, with the intention of it going to the Southside Crips, disguised as a check to Black Round Records, which was owned by Aaliyah's uncle.
Zip had a check in his right pocket, right back pocket, and that check was for $1 million. Jimmy Henchman got him the check for Black Ground Records. Follow the paper.
Tupac was so influenced by Suge that he joined the Mob Pyrus, Suge's Compton gang, also known as the Bloods.
That night he turned MOB. Pac over there in all red. I said, well, they got him.
Tupac Shakur was not affiliated with any gangs prior to his tenure with Death Row Records, which began in October of 1995. Tupac had been signed to Interscope Records and was originally from the East Coast, where he spent a majority of his time, with this being due to filming several movies there, such as Juice and Above the Rim. While filming for Above the Rim in Harlem, New York, between October and November of 1993, Tupac had met a New York gangster by the name of Haitian Jack. Haitian Jack was a member of a New York robbery ring called the A-Team, which was affiliated with gangsters Walter King Tut Johnson, along with Jimmy Henchman. Puff Daddy's company Bad Boy was formed earlier on in that year, with Haitian Jack and King Tut becoming acquainted with Puffy and Biggie, who had just been discovered and signed by Puffy. Rumors began to spread that Jimmy Henchman and the gangsters were extorting money from Bad Boy.
The East Coast drug dealers got them as extortion. I came and fucked up everything.
Tupac, who was signed to Interscope Records, began to be pressured by Haitian Jack after meeting him to try and get Tupac to sign to Bad Boy. Tupac refused to sign to Bad Boy but continued to hang out with Haitian Jack. Haitian Jack then introduced Tupac to a woman called Ayanna Jackson while at a Manhattan nightclub in November of 1993. Tupac, Haitian Jack and the girl were involved in a legal case a few days later after Ayanna Jackson pressed charges against Tupac. Tupac told New York Daily News reporter AJ Benza that Mike Tyson had warned him about Haitian Jack along with Jimmy Henchman, and how Tupac believed that Haitian Jack had set him up in the case with the girl. Rumors spread of Haitian Jack setting up Tupac through the case to extort him after being unsuccessful in his attempt to sign him to Bad Boy. Tupac later spoke on this in an interview with Sway.
She can make millions if she do it right. If she gets some guys and they all plan it, and that's exactly what they did.
And on November 29th, 1994, during a news broadcast, he spoke on how Haitian Jack's case had been severed from his, giving him a different trial, which indicated that he may have been an informant.
Where are those people that did this? They were all in the same hotel as me. They were all right in the same room with me. Why am I the only one in court right now?
The day after the news was broadcast, Jimmy Henchman had invited Tupac to a Manhattan recording studio. Puffy's former bodyguard revealed that Puffy was at the studio with Jimmy Henchman, while Biggie and Junior Mafia were in separate rooms, while they were having the recording session for their song called Players Anthem. Tupac went to the studio with Randy Stretch Walker, who was an associate of the A-Team gang, along with his road manager Charles Fuller, who was implicated in a legal case. King Tut, along with a man called Dexter Isaac, had approached Tupac and shot him 5 times after he had entered the studio in what was ruled as an attempted robbery. Tupac felt as if a hit was put out on him due to his comments he made on the news.
I dissed it in the Daily News, they put a hit out on me.
After being shot, Tupac had rode the elevator up to the studio which Puffy and Biggie were in, and he claimed they looked at him like they had seen a ghost. Tupac now had a beef with Puffy and Biggie, feeling as if they were implicated, or at the very least, did not provide any assistance following the shooting. The next day, Tupac was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Puffy had pushed Biggie into releasing a song called Who Shot Ya in February of 1995, with Tupac hearing it while he was in prison. The song had been considered as a diss towards Tupac, although it was said to have been recorded prior to the shooting, but the push by Puffy to release it following what took place was seen as a dig towards Tupac. Tupac was bailed out of prison in October of 1995 by Suge Knight, who used money from Death Row Records distributor Interscope Records in a sum of $1.2 million to have him granted a release and signed to a free album deal with Death Row. Death Row Records artists were pressured by Suge Knight to claim a gang set, with him forcing Snoop Dogg to pick a gang set to fit the image of gangster rap being of Death Row Records. Suge revealed how he had told Snoop that he couldn't claim to be a Piru, as Snoop Dogg was from Long Beach, which is a Crip-only area, with Suge Knight then claiming that Snoop Dogg paid to be inducted into the Long Beach Crips.
I talked to Snoop. I said, listen, pick one. I said, what do they have in Long Beach? They don't have no blood, so you can't be a blood. Snoop was in a situation where he paid to be in the game.
The Dog Pound, who are a group signed to Death Row made up of Daz Dillinger and Corrupt, have been labelled as fake Crips by Keefy D, as they are not from Los Angeles and only claimed a set as part of the push from Suge Knight. Suge Knight revealed in the documentary American Dream, American Nightmare how it was argued on whether Tupac was going to claim a Crip set or a Blood set, as Death Row Records was segregated between the two in Can-Am Studios, with one room being of the Bloods and the other being of Snoop Dogg's affiliated Crips. Suge Knight then revealed that a red rag was put on Pac and he became a member of the mob Compton Pyrus. Tupac got M.O.B. tattooed on him and began shouting it out on records and made a song called M.O.B. Mob James confirmed how Trayvon Lane inducted Tupac into the M.O.B., and it was further claimed by both artists RBX and Tupac's friend Big Sack that Tupac was jumped into the mob Pyrus. Death Row Records' former head of security and former Compton cop Reggie Wright Jr. refuted these claims and claimed that Tupac wasn't jumped into the M.O.B. Tupac's bodyguard Frank Alexander claimed in a 2002 documentary Biggie and Tupac that Tupac loved to fight, so it would not be surprising if he was to have to endure a jump-in to prove himself to the M.O.B.
Tupac was a disturbed soul when it came to gang banging and fighting and stuff like that. He loved to fight.
Behind-the-scenes videos of his music shoots proved this to be true, showing Tupac starting confrontations while on the shoots of music videos. Big Sack, along with Tupac's first manager Watani Tai Himba, have both claimed that they had to stop interacting with Tupac after he had joined Death Row, as his whole demeanor had completely changed into forcing a gangbanger persona from being influenced by Suge Knight and the Bloods. Watani Tai Himba claimed that Tupac had a plan before he joined Death Row Records under his Thug Life movement, which had planned to find a way to unite the Bloods and Crips under a peace treaty to lead into forming a political party to invest in and improve impoverished communities.
Watani Tai Himba confirmed to me that Tupac took on a fake gangster persona in order to appeal to gangs and then politicize them. And that was part of the Bloods versus Crips peace truce movement.
Tupac's stepfather Mutulu Shakur had revealed that the day before Tupac was involved in a 1993 case with Haitian Jack, he had been setting up gang truces through phone calls which took place in the hotel room where the case happened. Pac's lawyer Michael Warren had discovered that the police had been bugging the phone of the hotel and had a copy of the tapes, which he had tried to get entered into evidence for proof of Tupac's whereabouts.
I came to this meeting to pull that agreement together, and the next day they have him set up on this Part of his case was that there were tapes on the telephone of what he was trying to do in the hotel, and the cops got the tapes. And Michael Warren was trying to use the tapes as evidence.
Pac's former associates claim after joining Death Row, he had become far too influenced into putting on a gangster persona and began to backtrack on the plans which he had before joining Death Row Records. Some believe his allegiance to the MOB may have caused his downfall following a run-in between the mob and the Southside Compton Crips in Las Vegas. The Southside Compton Crips were in Las Vegas on September 7th, 1996, which included Terrence Brown, DeAndre Smith, Keefe D, and Orlando Anderson. They drove from Compton to Las Vegas in a white Cadillac, which was rented under Terrence Brown's mother-in-law's name. They claimed to have gone there to watch a Mike Tyson fight, which was taking place in the MGM Grand. They had no tickets for the fight, but watched it at the MGM Grand lobby bar. Keefe D claimed to have been joined by New York gangster Eric Zip Martin, who was the person who had introduced him to Puffy. Tupac and Suge Knight, along with the MOB Bloods, had also have been at the Tyson fight. Trayvon Lane, who had his chain snatched by Orlando Anderson almost 2 months before, pointed him out to the entourage, with Tupac being the first to run over and attack the Southside Compton Crip, followed by Suge Knight and the MOB Pyrus. 3 hours after the beating had taken place, Tupac and Suge Knight were shot at 13 times in a drive-by shooting, with the shots coming from a white Cadillac. Keefe D in the 3-hour-long LAPD confession claimed that the Southsiders had carried out the shooting and he was the person who had handed Orlando Anderson a Glock, which was then used to carry it out. MOB Bloods, Trayvon Lane and Buntree had chased after the white Cadillac and returned fire. Tupac died just under a week after being hit 4 times during the incident. Afterwards, a gang war had broken out in Compton between the MOB Pyrus and the Southside Compton Crips, with informants telling the police how Suge Knight had distributed AK-47s to Pyrus to be used during the war. The Compton Police Department had carried out raids during the Bloods and Crips gang war, and Keefe D has claimed during interviews that Suge Knight had the cops that were allegedly working for him to carry out dirty work during a time to arrest the Crips. Keefe also claimed that some cops that were Crips had warned him to get out of Compton prior to the raids taking place. More raids have now taken place in 2023 relating to the case. Biggie Smalls was murdered in a drive-by shooting being in Los Angeles just 6 months after Tupac's murder took place, with Biggie's murder also being connected to the Bloods, with 2 main theories pointing at either a Pyru called Wardell Poochie Faust or Blood gang member and former Rampart cop David Mack. In this video, we took a look into Tupac's ties into the Compton MOB Bloods. Mob James revealed how he disliked that Tupac had been initiated into the mob as he hadn't grown up in Compton and had never put in any work for the MOB. Tupac had made his bones, so to speak, with the assault on Orlando Anderson, with Suge Knight revealing how he had told him directly afterwards that he was going to be the best in the street game.
He pushing that MOB. He done took down a well-known Compton gangbanger. Who's a rip. Pac looked at me like, "You see how I took off?" I'm like, "You did that. You getting everything you asked for. You the best in this rap game. Now you being the best in this street game."
Tupac ultimately could have put his life on the line for the MOB, which he had already declared in the lyrics to his song called Changed Man, where he says, quote, "Stick a needle in my eye if I don't live and die for MOB," unquote. Let me know what your thoughts are on all this in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.